and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to a Tuesday night. And on Tuesday night we do special things like eat tacos. Is that a Tuesday thing?
Spaghetti tonight, but yeah.
Okay. Ice cream? Are we doing ice cream yet?
Not yet. But
it's pretty cold.
Yeah. Oh, it's never too cold for ice cream.
when I saw the first 7-degree temperature here like 2 nights ago, it's like, oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, we live here, don't we?
I was just in New York City yesterday, and we were, kind of down by the park, and it was cold and rainy, and the ice cream truck guy was basically trying to close up shop, and we're like, no, wait.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. That's right. You can close after us. We're from Minnesota.
Yeah, sir. It's like 60 degrees out here. No one's buying ice cream. What? See these shorts?
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right.
So Ben, tonight, headphones are one of those personal items that DJs really, in most cases, can't live without. And I've had people ask over the, what do you get? What is your favorite? And there's more than just ooh, these are pretty, behind what the technology and different things that are involved with the different types of headphones out there. So I just wanted to kind of use tonight's show to give someone who maybe is just starting out and is wondering, what should I get into? What's the advantages and disadvantages? Let's kind of go through a little bit, because in your time you have used at least 2 different pair.
I own at least 4 different pair right now. I regularly use a couple different pair, and it depends on what I'm doing. And of course, I think with DJs, the same thing applies. Most DJs are, at least in the vocational setting, they're probably using headphones for mixing and queuing. So there might be we'll get into the audible and auditory and audible, whatever the word I want to use here is. That's, of course, John, I got like an hour of sleep before going to the airport at like 1 o'clock this morning. I went to the airport anyway. So if the words are a little bit jumbled today, just whatever. But we could talk about like some of the physical design characteristics, like from a DJ standpoint, maybe I want a headphone that has, rotating cups, or something, so I could do like the 1-ear cue thing or whatever. I want to, have, some flexibility to move that thing around. So that would be, one consideration. And again, that comes down to more, workflow. Some of the things I really like, detachable cable can be really handy. There's times I want a different style of cable, but moreover, just, for storage. And so to get into the other 2 that I've got kind of close by with me, and to sort of maybe jump off the discussion here a little bit, I have this pair, some old Vimotas that I use basically for watching movies on the plane, and that's about it. And the reason is they're small and they're compact and they're good enough for a movie, but I don't particularly care for how inaccurate they are. Now, that's not to say that Vimota doesn't make a good headphone. They make a great headphone. Those are crossfade LP2s, and the M100 Master tends to be much more of an accurate headphone because, again, they're engineering these things for, what people want. So these tend to be, I find them kind of bass heavy and a bit, maybe even muddy. So they're not useful to me from a live sound mixing standpoint, which brings me to my personal headphones, the ones that my work headphones, if
Sure.
you will. When I open the case, like a bright light, it's like, I use a set of Neumann NDH20s, and they're very, very accurate. And we could get into some of the characteristics. It'd be very confusing, I think, different driver sizes and different impedances. And sensitivity is going to be something we're going to find that's a lot more similar to the conversations we have without speakers.
Mm-hmm.
But even though headphones are speakers, that's kind of where the similarities end. And by the way, just another thing I really like about headphones is a case. I like having mine in a case. And if you don't happen to have a case for your headphones, shameless plug, but we sell cases for headphones. So um, I bought a case for Mental Effects for my Neumann headphones. So.
So you mentioned, of course, inaccurate type and inaccurate, and you mentioned mud. Is that common because of the design compromises that have to be made to hit a price point, hit a size, or is it something that some brands are just better at being more accurate than other brands?
Well, I think it's both, but I think it's also intentional. And again, even within the V-Moda family, those are not as accurate as another V-Moda brand or product, like the M100 Master is more accurate. And those would maybe be more of a DJ headphone. They're a little bit more low frequency heavy. And there's some really interesting things about that. Might be time for the first graph of the night, but some researchers at Harman actually, let me see if I can find this now. Some researchers at Harman came up with what the curve should be, basically for a headphone to sound flat. And it's going to sound very counterintuitive, but when we think about it, and we'll talk specifically about like an over-the-ear headphone, you know, you've got there's different parts of our ear, and what we would probably just call an ear actually has a name. It's called a pinna, and an over-the-ear headphone goes over the pinna, and it interacts with that. And of course, these are designed, basically they're custom built right on our head. Our pinnas are, or the our outer ear to capture sounds, and they don't capture all frequencies equitably, and they were never really designed for us to capture a sound on top of them, right? So
Okay.
there's some really cool science that goes in. I mean, think about an example that comes to mind. This sort of stuff fascinates me. I think about this stuff all the time. Like I really do.
and I think he's right. He does. But
Yeah, you're laughing because it's true. Like,
it's true.
so think of it like an Apple AirPod, right? Or I would imagine it's the same for most of those types of things. But if you look at it, it's got a little tiny hole on the outside. And if you put your finger over that hole, suddenly all the low frequency goes away. And when we think about these really long low frequency wavelengths, 100 hertz being like 11.3 feet long, you think, how does a tiny little driver that fits inside a headphone that goes inside your ear produce those low frequencies? And there's a lot of alchemy going on here, right? There's, it's just physics actually, but there's a lot of trickery going on. And so anyway, the point is, because everybody's ear canal is not built the same and everybody's pinna is not made the same, that, headphones are going to have a different sound from person to person. With of course that understanding, manufacturers are still trying to create a characteristic sound for this headphone or that headphone. Going back to the anatomy thing for a second before I pull up this graph, which again, I'm about to tell you that the graph is sort of close, but everybody's a little bit different because now we've got all these other things going into play too, not just the shape and size of your ear canal, but your own skull, your jaw structure, things that, are going to interact with the sound, even your chest and body structure is going to interact with, resonant and reflected sounds, and it's going to impact. So you and I might listen to a set of headphones, and each of us might hear them differently. In fact, likely we would have some variance in what we hear with the same set of headphones between the two of us. So let me share this graph real quick, courtesy of our friends at Harman. And you can see that this has evolved a little bit, so we've got this evolving 2013, 15, 17, where basically they're saying if you want a headphone to sound flat, we have to give it these curves. And this is not particularly surprising in some ways, because if we think about where the human hearing sensitivity is, and again, we're thinking about the fact that the sound source is now super close to the ear, and there's all kinds of cool things that have to be done to make this sound right. So, punchline to all of that, if I'm using the Crossfade LP2s to mix a live stream, for example, and I mix to where the live stream sounds good in those headphones on an accurate system, it's going to sound very thin. Because I'm scooping out a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily really going to be there in the actual mix. Whereas I find for me, on the Neumanns, or even M100 or an Audio Technica ATH M50X. That's a really good headphone too. On any of those, your mix is going to sound very, very different. Now, if you're a DJ and you're like, well, I'm not using my headphones to mix. I'm not using my headphones to EQ. I just need to hear the beat and I want it really loud. Maybe that's where that, low frequency is going to be really important.
Sure.
So again, that's why, Pioneer is doing their thing and, V-Moto's doing their thing. And depending on what they're making that headphone for, you're going to have different acoustic characteristics in those.
I guess I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, but yeah, that would definitely make sense.
I guess that's why we do the show, huh?
Yeah, for sure. That way, I can learn things.
Don't we all?
So now on that graphic you just showed, it had OE and IE, I believe.
I would guess that is, it's funny, I didn't catch that, but I'm sort of on the spot. I'm going to say that that's probably over ear and inner ear.
And you mentioned, of course, because of the design of our ear, but now between those two, I mean, I can see when there's one inside, there's one over ear, there's on ear, and then there's the in the ear canal type of thing. Those, do they get tuned? Are they very similar when they're tuning, or are there just some tuning?
No, they're different for sure. And a couple things are going on here, depending on if you've got like an over the ear, open back, closed back, studio phone, whatever, there's obviously environmental sound that's being blocked out by the cushion and the body, but also things that are allowed to, come in. Then again, there's that, interaction with your pinna, as well as the ear canal, whereas an in-ear monitor or an in-ear headphone is designed to, kind of go in. And again, anybody who has AirPods or any of those knows the difference. If you just move them around, how different that sounds. There's a lot of engineering going on to where that sound exits the headphone and how it's supposed to be heard. And then if we get into a professional class, like an actual molded in-ear monitor, something that's custom molded, well, that's going to have significant isolation from the outside world. And, some of these have 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers, man, it's crazy. 7 drivers. I don't know how they pack them all in there, right? But anyway, each with a design characteristic. And those tend to be, and again, a broad brush, it's always dangerous to paint with a broad brush, right? But those tend to be much more accurate. Those musicians are looking for an accurate sound,
You mentioned drivers. That's where I wanted to kind of head there next. I've seen some with a single driver and some with multi drivers. Is it similar to a two-way speaker where one driver is doing these frequencies, or are they trying to achieve something different by having multiple drivers?
Yeah, it is. And of course, by having multiple drivers, whether it's for frequency or whatever you're trying to accomplish, you can share that load a little bit. We can start to decide which driver reproduces what part of the mix, what part of the music, as it were, and so I think a simple way to say this would be more drivers is better, but I think there's probably a point of diminishing returns too, right? Where we'd say, okay, do you need a 7 driver ear monitor? I don't know, maybe you do, but I don't find that I do. I find that I get everything I need out of, one that's got, a couple drivers, 3 or 4, whatever, but obviously one could reason that the more drivers is better.
So the custom in-ear versions of a friend of ours, he just mentioned he got a pair of those, and of course he's completely just delighted with those. For someone who's never, what's a custom in-ear monitor? Can you tell about the process of what that is to get one of those designed for yourself? And
I just learned about a new process. There are a couple processes. And I remember when I got my first pair 15 years ago or so, whatever it was, a long time ago, they were using a laser scanner, and they stuck a laser in my ear to scan my ear canal. And I tried to tell them, I said, I got a really weird ear canal, guys. It's not going to work. Oh no, it'll work, And after about 5 attempts, they gave up, and they went to the old school method, which we'd always used in the years past, where they basically shoot some silicone in there and wait for it to, or some goo or whatever
it was. Yeah.
I guess I don't know what it is. I think it's silicone. It doesn't matter. But anyway, they shoot some goo in there and it hardens up a little bit, and then they pull that out, and then they got a mold of your ear canal. And then, that goes back to the lab, and they, carve that down a little bit and shape it, so it's smooth and not abrasive to your ear canal and whatever. But anyway, so if you don't have a weird ear canal like me, you can probably do the laser thing, and they just shoot it in there and it scans it, and then they 3D print these things,
Wow.
or you can get the goo stuck in your ear. And then I just learned, it's funny. I'm sure some people watching the show are going, really, how did you not know this? But I didn't. I just learned this actually about 4 or 5 days ago. So on my flight to Boston, talking to another sound person friend of mine, and he bought. They have a soft silicone, and you stuff them in your ear, and that soft silicone kind of takes the shape of your ear canal, and then from an app on your phone, it activates a UV light in the headphone, in the ear, in the earbud, I guess we call them, and then it causes that silicone to set up and permanently retain that shape. So that's cool. Like that's
Yeah.
neat.
Wow.
So,
No, I'd not heard that.
yeah, well, that's good. That's two of us. All right. I don't know. I guess I'm old, so.
I wonder if it's the same dentist who, created the filling thing, with the UV light, and then went and fixed the chip in your windshield UV light. That's the same guy who did both of those. I wonder if that's part of his company. Silly putty in the ear, Robin. That would work too. Yeah.
Let me just say about that. I would have an audiologist do it. I wouldn't go cramming stuff in my own ear. You know what? I would just have an audiologist do it. Obviously, the worst case scenario is you could damage your ear. You could puncture an eardrum or something if you're goofing off too much. I wouldn't. I would just let an audiologist do it.
Yeah, because if you get that silly putty in your ear too far, and for some reason you can't get it out, you're going to go see an audiologist.
Yeah, or worse. Or worse.
So when they do the custom in-ear things like that, is it utilizing just because of the shape that's what it's using for noise canceling from the outside world, or is there some technology in that, again, similar to our Apple AirPod Pros, that is doing some active noise canceling?
I can't say for certain that there aren't any that have active noise or don't have active noise canceling, but I would say that without exception, the ones that I see on stage are just playing the music, and you've just got substantial attenuation from the fact that it seals off all the outside sounds.
Sure.
One of the interesting things about that, though, is we have these really tiny drivers in our head, and they're pretty good at reproducing music in a way that we hear it, and it sounds good and accurate, but it doesn't have the feeling. So we still have musicians occasionally ask for stage monitors or side fills, things like that, just to try to give the rest of your body some of that sound. Because it is now very, very isolated to that little tiny part of, it's just what we hear, but not what we feel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a thing that, and another thing, I see this a lot. I see less of it now. I think people are starting to get a little bit more educated, but I see artists will pop an ear out all the time. They'll have one in and one hanging out, and then they'll have a monitor blasting away. And I always try to caution against that, because you're going to run both a lot hotter. You're going to run the ear and the monitor a lot higher. And just think about, when you're on the phone in a loud car or something, you might plug the other ear so you can hear better. Well, you're doing the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So I always tell them, say, that's a really good way to just, cook both your ears. So.
Mm-hmm.
But it's their ears.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like you can't babysit them and such. And
that's literally my job, is babysitting them. But yeah, so
when you get to that point, yeah.
It's funny you picked that word. That's I guess I'm counting on the fact that none of the artists I work for are watching this show.
No, not so much. No, we got a few of our friends
who
who
are watching. Go to bed. It's bedtime.
Go to bed. You got a show tomorrow. What do you?
That's right. And brush your teeth and wash behind your ears. All right.
So let's talk about life expectancy from headset. Now the Neumanns you said you had, and those are with you. You're using those at different shows and such. How long would you expect those to be able to last using them as often as you do?
I don't know an exact number. I'm going to say years though, because they live in a case. They really they're living their best life. They're living in a case. They're very well taken care of. The ear pads are probably something that are going to, wear, the most, and they're gonna, soak up body oils and sweats and all kinds of gross things. And so over time, those might need to get replaced before anything else will. But as long as you keep them clean and dry, and the cables are replaceable here, they're detachable.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a couple different cables in there, long and short and coiled and straight, and kind of pick my poison. But I mean, I've had them for years already, and they still look pristine.
Yeah, they look great.
Yeah, so I think if and again, they live in a case, and that case lives inside another case. Uh, I think if you take care of them, keep them clean. I mean, probably a little dose of personal hygiene doesn't hurt either. If I was doing a lot of, like hot, high energy dance party, I was a DJ and I was, sweating a lot or whatever. I mean, that's obviously gonna be a contributor to the, demise of my gear, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a pretty good investment when you think about it. I mean, even if you get a set of, $150 or $200 headphones, you break that down into a number of years, you're not paying a lot per show to have a good set of headphones.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing it really becomes a situation, as everything we talk about gear wise. If you buy quality and buy a invest in something that's going to be there for a long time and take care of it, it will.
Yeah, and if you're on a bit of a budget too, you can pick up. There's a lot of good headphone options for 40, 50, 60, $100. And again, it just depends on what you need them for. If you're just trying to hear the beat, they just have to be loud enough to get the job done for you. And I wish there was a really easy way. And one of the reasons I wanted to show that Harman curve is, unlike a speaker where we can show you a frequency response, you'll pretty much notice like no headphone manufacturer really publishes that.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that.
Let me just show you a couple. So let's do this. Let's go. So here you should see, this is the one for the Neumanns that I have. And, we'll see a few things that, it'll say it's a closed headphone. It's got a 38 millimeter driver. It's with a neodymium magnet, so, high power. Here we'll note the impedance, frequency response, crazy. They'll go down to 5 hertz. It's bonkers. Sensitivity, and this, they tell us here, this is, 1 kilohertz at 1 volt, but, we're going to get 114 dB SPL. And there's an important little M there. It's not 1,000 watts, it's 1,000 milliwatts. But anyway, so that's the, there's the specs for the Neumanns.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look at, let's see what else I got here. Well, how about some Pioneers? Why not? Let's do some Pioneers. So let's see. There we go. You guys probably saw it before I did. I had to get to that. But here we can see, this will handle 2,000 milliwatts. But oddly enough, remember we talked about power handling. This is a sensitivity 104 instead of 114. So even though they'll handle twice as much power, the Neumanns are still louder by a good bit, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And, notice this is only 32 ohms, same frequency response, 5 to 30K, 40 millimeter dome, so on and so forth. So I think I'm going to show one more, and then I'm going to basically say that I think that trying to shop for headphones based on specs could be kind of frustrating.
Sure, I can see that.
Yeah, where you'd say, well, I don't understand what any of this means, right? Let's pull up these Audio Technicas. I like these good sounding headphone. Here we can see this is a 45 millimeter driver. Doesn't go down to 5 hertz, but really, who cares, honestly?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't listen to anything that low. Here it's sort of the halfway in between, 1,600 milliwatts. But the sensitivity is actually even lower than the Pioneer. So even though this has more power handling than the Neumann, this isn't going to be as loud. But it's a 38 ohm. And again, it's still a really good sounding headphone. I find it loud enough for sure, but I could see where this would be a difficult thing, and then of course I help people with headphones all the time. Customers, maybe some of our viewers would say, well, what would you get? Well, I mean, I'd love to tell everybody to go get a $500 set of Neumanns, but I went most of my career without having those too.
Sure.
That's sort of when you get to a certain age kind of thing, right? You're like, all right, it's time for the finer things in life, right? I want to wear comfortable headphones that sound great, But I mean, I used to wear, the cheapest things, and they just blasted sound into my ear, and it wasn't accurate or great, but I could hear what was going on. And then you sort of, migrate and evolve. So I tend to say, what are you using it for? How much do you care about the quality and the accuracy of the sound? What are you going for?
Mm-hmm.
And then try to guide people. A lot of the DJ headphone manufacturers tend to make headphones that are sort of tilted towards what they think DJs want to hear. And then, as you move up in the AT line, for example, the 20, 30, 40, 50, the most accurate and best sounding is the 50,
Sure.
But it depends,
Mm-hmm. Really, yeah.
And again, that swivel cup thing, how much does that matter? The ATs don't have that. So I've had customers who, have opted for a less good sounding headphone because that mechanical feature is important to them.
Sure. Yeah. Good information. So to wrap up, it depends.
It depends.
And it depends on a lot of different potential factors, but hey, there's options.
Even if we talk about over the ear versus in ear for a DJ, okay, good example. A molded in ear is going to sound great and be comfortable, but it's going to be very difficult to take in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're I'm going to do my best DJ impression. Of course, I used to DJ, right? So everybody knows that, right? So, but if you're doing this all the time, whatever, then maybe an in-ear isn't for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're just going for the look, I don't know I clearly don't have the look, but did I ever tell you my kids were stunned to find out that I was a DJ?
I can imagine that because they wouldn't have seen that side of you.
No, and of course, I was a DJ for I think something like 15 years, and that was a lot of shows.
Mm-hmm.
I would say more than 1,000. Without having an actual scientific number, but I know how many I was averaging per year as I got in my later career. Anyway, it's a lot. It doesn't matter, whatever it is, but my kids were like, but you're not cool. Like
your music.
And it was the most honest. They weren't even like kidding. They weren't even like trying to troll me. They were just like, there's no way you were a DJ. And I'm like, I was, and I worked a lot. I was actually really, booked. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
They were like, oh my God, if you went to a school dance, I would leave. I'm like, yeah, because you're my kid, you moron.
Yes, they're always so supportive. Yeah, that they are.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, fun. Hey, gang, up next in about 2 or 3 minutes, just go out to DJNTV.com/chill. Robin put the link in the YouTube, and I just put it everywhere else. Again, DJNTV.com/chill. The guys are going to be recording tonight's Tuesday Night Music Show. Brian and Jay and John and Howie, it looks like, are going to be there tonight. So it should be a good night of talking music and having some fun there. And then, I think next week we are off because there's something going on Monday next week. I don't know.
I feel like it's a birthday.
Yeah, something's happening next week. We'll have to figure that out. And
something about the
kids something about, and the kids brought up shopping. I don't know. I'll figure it out on Saturday.
There's that too, I guess.
Yeah, we'll figure it out Saturday. Ben, thank you much for putting some things together and talking to us tonight about headphones. And thank you guys for being with us tonight. If you have any questions, you can go find the information to get a hold of Ben and his staff at nlfxpro.com. And then they'll be able to kind of walk you through finding whatever headphones and her headset is going to be the best ones for you. We'll catch you guys next time. Good night, everybody.